Therapist and I have done my bachelor's in applied psychology. Today I'm going to talk about autism, how it is treated and how it is perceived in Pakistan. So, firstly, I will talk about the perception of mental illness in Pakistan. Here we have four themes according to which mental illness is perceived. First common perspective in Pakistan is medical or physical health problem. Actually, this approach focuses on the biological and neurological aspects, which means if a person, for instance, is having a panic attacks or anxiety, people will suggest them or people will go to a doctor for heart checkup. They will feel they have some physical problem or medical problem which needs to be addressed from a doctor, but not from a psychologist or a psychiatrist because they think there is nothing like mental health, it's only physical health problem. Second, it's spiritual or supernatural problems. Mostly people think that mental illness caused by supernatural or spiritual forces. It's a belief and linked with traditional practices. Actually, it's in their belief system. It's their belief that if a person who is, for instance, having depression or I would say anxiety, it's because of supernatural problems, or even if a child who might have even ADHD or autism, they will think that it is some supernatural force. And thirdly, it's religious problem. Actually, people think that due to lack of faith and as they are away from their religion, people are feeling restless or are not able to sleep at night or do not feel like or feel like they don't want to eat or want to stay alone or feel worried all the time. They think it's just because you are away from your religion and you should practice your religion and you should pray or you should always remember your creator. You are away from your creator or you are away from your religion. So first three themes are those themes which are mostly being I would say used in Pakistan. With the help of these three perceptions, people actually understand or perceive their problems like those which are actually mental health, but they don't consider it mental health problem. But at last, you can see there is a psychological problem. People do think that there are few people who actually show acceptance or show understanding towards a psychological problem, who might see those people who are having any kind of depression. They will suggest them that you should go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist for treatment. But this ratio is less as compared to the first three themes. Next, I would like to talk about those factors which are influencing the perception about mental health illness. Firstly, it's stigma. People actually stigmatize those people who actually prefer going to a psychologist or a psychiatrist for their mental health problem. People think those people who are actually going to a psychologist, they are not mentally stable. They are mentally unstable. They consider them unstable. And secondly, limited access. What source resources are limited? I think there are limited or few educational programs that are actually specifically designed to train professionals, educators, and parents about autism, or even for any other mental health illness. There are very less educational programs related to mental health illness. and due to which the excess, definitely when there are very less programs which are given, or even I would say even they are even if they are providing those programs on mental health illness with the help of like few workshops, then they would charge too much that not everyone will be able to join or to go to those workshops, due to which people have limited lack of awareness, which means people don't know, people do not understand that there is something mental health illness as physical health illness. People do not actually prioritize their mental health illness as much as they actually prioritize their physical health illness, due to the lack of awareness, due to the lack of understanding and misconception they are having. Now actually we are having those now actually in this slide I wrote actually those disorders that are actually common in Pakistan. First, it's PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder. Second is depression, then anxiety, eating disorder, and autism. Here, I would say that as you can see, the percentage of autism is very less. Why is it is like that? Because as I have talked about the factors and the perception of people, actually people what actually with autism, the firstly I would say people are not familiar with this term as much as they're familiar with these terms. So when they're familiar with these terms, the other four terms means they have knowledge. They do know what is PTSD, what is depression, what is anxiety, what is eating disorder, and even if they're when they know about it, it means that when they experience the symptoms of anxiety, they will know that they are having some problem and they should go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. So they rush to them. But in autism, the awareness is not that much as compared to anxiety, but with the passage of time it will increase, because now right now there are many organizations and there are social media platforms. Even on social media platforms people are actually spreading the information about autism, but it will happen slowly and gradually, but people are actually having little awareness about it. Next, it's awareness. Like again, as I was talking about awareness, that as you can see in this timeline, in different years and also in different cities, uh, and in different cities, the mental health centers were built, like as in Lahore, Rawalpindi, Islamabad, Karachi, so that everyone can have access to it and can have treatment for their mental illness at the right time, so that they can have a better life. So, how people view or perceive autism in Pakistan? In Pakistan, actually, people view autism firstly as a poor parenting. They think parents didn't do good upbringing of the child, and they mostly blame mother, that it is mother's fault due to which child is having this condition. Secondly, as I talked about supernatural forces, people think if child is not behaving usual, if he or she is exhibiting an unusual behavior, like is like silent and is not responding to others, and is not responding to his or her name, or is not doing socialization, or is like, for instance, I would like to add some more symptoms like as stereotypical behaviors, they will like as in such child is doing like hand flapping, or even like as like we know in autism a child might have like sensory problems as well, and some, and also have meltdowns. So they think there is some supernatural force in him or her, due to which he or she is exhibiting such behavior. Lastly, it's divine punishment. People actually blame parents. Again, they think that it is their past deeds due to which it is happening, or their sins due to which the child is actually suffering from this condition. So, due to which actually parents start feeling guilt or shame. But here I would like to add one more thing, that if we talk about the class, means like the um, upper class, lower class, and middle class, I would say it mostly happens in lower class, and also in middle class as well, but more in lower class because they lack education, they lack they lack knowledge, they like it's 100% in lower class that they will only go with these two things. But in middle class, they will mostly go with poor parenting because they might have knowledge about little bit knowledge about autism, but still not everyone is having knowledge about autism, or not everyone is enough. But everyone do not have enough knowledge about it, so they start. Firstly, they will blame mother, and then they might start saying like it's a supernatural force or divine punishment, but it is less in upper class. Here I quoted few statements from others who from an article I took these statements. So one mother said that someone said to her that by doing wazifa she can get rid of her sins. Actually, wazifa is means like religious verse, which means if they will recite the wazifa, means religious verse, they will get rid of their sins due to which their child is actually having this condition. So as you can see over here, it was only one person, but still there was, but still that one person also like firstly blamed mother, and the thing he did or she, whoever that person was religious. They were like, it is you who did something bad in the past, it's you who did a sin due to which your child is now having this problem, it's because of you. They didn't felt like it's nothing with that, like obviously like it's autism is not related with your sins or your deeds, but due to their lack of knowledge they perceive it like that. And the second statement was, these days a mother said that my husband blames me. So here even a husband is blaming a mother that it is your fault due to which our child is in this condition, whereas he knows that it is from his family side, because definitely we know that autism could be due to genes as well, but he didn't accept it or said that it might be from his due to from his, it might be due to his family side, but he blamed mother. And next, there is a statement that by my family members, of course, my in-laws, that you have diabetes. As here you can see, they actually blamed mother that she was having diabetes, or you are having you have diabetes, and because of that your kids are like this. The other one is also at a risk, his older brother is autistic. So they are actually blaming mother that it's because of you, because you have diabetes due to which a child is having autism. Like here the thing is, the mother is didn't do anything intentionally, or and it's nothing like it's that she did it intentionally or something like that, but they didn't understand it due to lack of again I would say knowledge or understanding. They didn't provide that support to the parents or to the child which is actually required. Instead of blaming them, they should support them, but the support from families in Pakistan is very less. I won't say that no, there are no families who support the parents or child. There are families who actually take the child to the therapy consistently so that the child gets better, and they show support to the mother. Even they do, I would say, try to understand mother, and even support her by saying that it's fine, everything will get okay with time, do not worry. There are such families in Pakistan, but still I would say there are other families as well who actually blame mothers for this condition. Next, how in our society people actually respond or act towards autism. Actually, people show negative attitude towards them, which means like people actually judge judge those people who have autism. People start saying things like the child do not have confidence, or he or she lacks confidence, he cannot speak, he cannot do he cannot do socialization, he do not know how to speak, like in short they just uh, make the child feel like he is less than other kids by saying such things. And they also discriminate, means they compare, they start comparing the child and say that the child is dull, which means they label the child and start saying such things, negative things towards the child, and make him and discriminate him or her by saying that your child is dull, he doesn't know how to behave or speak. And they keep, and at times parents keep their children away from such children who have autism, because they think that our child will get will have a bad that child will give a bad our child will have a bad impact due to the friendship with him. So people keep their children away from them because they do not understand what, because they actually don't know what is autism. So here again, there is a statement which a mother stated, that I live in fear, thinking that if my child stops speaking at all, I only want to see my kid leading a normal life like everyone else. One day the society will be able to understand why my child doesn't want to communicate with other outsider. As you can see that here the word society means, again, society is not actually understanding. Society is showing negative attitude, and society doesn't and society is actually judging the child that he doesn't know how to communicate, and he doesn't want to as you can see that here society is being judgmental. Society is judging the child, as and the mother is in fear. Definitely, if a child who is having autism is not only that the parents of the child are also going through a lot of mental health challenges because of the society and because of the family who doesn't show support to them, and who doesn't show acceptance towards them. Next, I would like to talk about diagnosis. In diagnosis of autism, two types of assessments are being done. The first one is informal assessment, in which therapists actually ask, or the psychologists ask the parents about the development of the child. Okay, so in this, observation is also done plus clinical interview. Actually, what we do in clinical interview is that we ask questions about the developmental milestones, as well as about the behaviors which parents are actually finding challenging, and also about the duration, for how long that they are observed, for how long they are observing these behaviors. And along with that, we also observe the behavior of the child by giving a certain stimuli to the child. For instance, if you want to check the behavior, you just give toys, you just present few toys to the child, so you get to know that how the child plays with them, or how much is on seat, does child sit or not, or for how long. So it's just a little observation, it's just an observation which psychologists do during an informal assessment, or by providing for instance, like these toys, as I told. And then then there's a formal assessment. What in formal assessment, actually, standardized tests are used. Actually, with the help of these tests, we can actually actually these tests helps you in an accurate diagnosis and tells you the intensity. As we know that autism is ASD is an spectrum disorder. So we have to know that if the child is having low autism, moderate, or mild, or the child is having high functioning autism. So it's very important to know. So in formal assessment, we do that. Okay, so here we are having the psychological tests, which are used in formal assessment. First, it's autism diagnostic observation schedule, then CARS, childhood autism rating, then CHAT, the checklist for autism in toddlers, then ABLES, assessment of basic language and learning skills revised. So here the first one is autism diagnostic observation schedule. So firstly, we have to make sure that which test we can use, because not every test cannot, like we have, because we have to see the age limit of that test. With the help of the age limit, we can administer the test, as this can be administered if the child is 1 year old and all the way through adulthood, so it can be administered. So in this observation schedule, we actually observe the child's social interactions, communication and language, how child plays, and how the child use uh, toys imaginatively through the use of a structured observation, which means that we have to see that for how long a child plays with a specific toy. Is a child is fixated with a specific toy or not, or is the child, when playing with the toys, is he or she following our command or not. We see such behaviors in this observation schedule. Next, it's childhood autism rating scale. Actually, this scale has scars 1, cars 2, like there are further two scales as well on cars, like it's cars 1 and cars 2, but these two scales are not used as much as cars is used. These rules are like little bit modified, but the cars is mostly used. So first, let's talk about the age range as used with children 2 years of age and above, which means that it's not only compulsory that we can use it with the children who are only 2 years of age. We can use it even above that, which means below the age of 3 we can use it, and even above. As you know that we cannot diagnose autism before the age of 3. It cannot be diagnosed, but we have, but as like parents see unusual behaviors, or feel that their child is not actually, for instance, responding to his or her name, or is not actually socializing, like or like keeps him or herself in a corner, or likes to play, or only likes to play alone. If a child is exhibiting such behaviors exhibiting, then parents do get worried. So for that, it's these tests are being used so that we can take the risk, as the this test like actually involves direct observation of the child, means like the parents actually tells about the child's behavior, like as in for like communication, social interaction, emotional regulation, and many other behaviors, like as in like sensory responsiveness as well. So we get to know that how many, you could say, how much risk is there of autism. So we, for that, we use the test these tests, like it tells us it is low, mild, it is high, or even like these three risks. In short, like these three risks, we can see like where the child lies. Like child, do child lie over here or on these two. So it actually helps the parents to actually get therapy on time so that the child improves, so that child can have a better life. But this test cannot be used all alone, as it is written that it is important to know that it is not a stand-alone diagnostic tool. We have to use other tests as well with this. Like for instance, we can use ABLS or any other test for autism. But in Pakistan, as this test is used, further this test is also used. It is checklist for autism in toddlers. Okay, as you can see, they have like a modified chart and modified chart revised. But as you can see that it's a toddlers checklist, then it we can use it only for toddlers, not for even those kids who are not toddlers. Okay, like for 9 years old, 10 years old, as you can see the age range is only like 18 to 24 months, which means only for toddlers this checklist can be used. So it has part A and part B, and again the results of the of this checklist is split. It splits into actually three groups: low, high, and moderate. But I would like to say one thing, that in cars it is non-autistic, as you can see. Sorry, over here. That over here you can see it's non-autistic, mildly, moderately, or severely. Like on cars we see these three things, but in chart scale we see that we have three group based risks, that is low, moderate, and high. So we check that. But this test is only used for toddlers. Okay, as in the previous test we have seen that those tests were used for the age of 2 years, or 12, it was 12 months, and all the way through the adulthood. But this is only for toddlers. You can't use it for even a child who is like 5 years old or even 7 years old. Next, it is ABLES, assessment of basic language and learning skills. In this test we actually observe 26 skill areas. We actually assess the 26 skill areas, and a few of them are deficiencies in language, academics, self-help, motor skills, or even imitation. These things are being observed. And in this what we do, that we actually make, with the help of this we also make IP plans, which means individualized educational plans. Okay, here I would like to say one thing, that if you are taking a therapy of two children who have autism, or even if you see two children who have autism, you will see that both of them will be different. If two children are having autism, it doesn't mean that both of them will be similar. If two children are having autism, both of them will be different from each other. Both of them will be different from each other, and that's why we also make IP plans. We make individualized IP plans, which means like we make IP plans according to a child's needs. Whatever, each IP plan actually meets the needs of the child, and then we actually implement these IP plans in these sessions, in the behavioral sessions, and then we also monitor the progress, that how much progress has been made, or how much progress needs to be done, or on which IP goals we have to work more. So we also monitor the individualized interventions, which we actually implement. So next, if we talk about the social treatment of autism, I would say till now, I hope you have like understood that. It is mixed. Social treatment is mixed, like as in Pakistani society, social treatment is present for autism, but still uh, in the same place, there are a few things that are not being done for autism. But firstly, there are support groups, and we see like in our society there are support groups for the autistic individuals and their families. Actually, these support groups actually provide emotional support to them. Emotional support to the people who have actually autism, or to the families who have a child who have autism, so that they do not feel alone. They do not feel like they can't express themselves. Like a child who have autism used to mask their symptoms because of society, because society do not show acceptance towards them, or society becomes judgmental towards them, so they do mask their symptoms, that society doesn't get to know that they are having autism, or they are neurodivergent, so they mask. But such support groups actually provide them emotional support, so that they can feel like they have a safe space where they can express themselves as it is who they are. And then they also actually share experiences and the resources, like for instance the resources, therapy options which could be beneficial for them, or the new strategies which could be beneficial for them. So, such support groups are present in the society, but along with that, there are many autistic individuals who experience social isolation due to lack of understanding and acceptance from society. At the same time, due to the negative attitude towards them or negative perception, many autistic individuals feel loneliness, or they feel alone. They actually um, uh, as they're not accepted by the society, so it becomes difficult for them to do socialization, or to become or to actually or to actually go, like for instance, like it is difficult for them to make friends, because not everyone actually, obviously, as people do not understand what is autism, or do not show acceptance towards them, they become judgmental. So it becomes difficult for them to actually talk to other people, because as we know that for autism it is difficult to make friends. They don't know, but with the help of therapy they can learn how to make friends. But as this society actually doesn't know what is autism, so even after therapy, if they are trying to make friends, it becomes difficult for them, because society is not showing them acceptance. So it becomes difficult. And then it also becomes difficult for them that social interactions can be challenging, and opportunities for meaningful engagement are limited. Like as in as we know that for autism, they do have problem, they do feel difficult in actually verbal communication, but they might like they at times like rely on the non-verbal communication, which can be challenging, because it becomes difficult in understanding the body language, because even those people who are non-autistic, as you know, like they do not, as I have told before, that due to lack of awareness or knowledge, they do not know, like the challenges of the difficulties which autistic people go through. So they do not understand their non-verbal cues, or their way of conveying the message. So it becomes difficult for then autistic people, then it becomes challenging or difficult for them to have a social interaction, or to like have a meaningful engagement. Like for instance, I would say it becomes difficult for them to have a job even in a society like this, because definitely um, they lack such awareness, so it becomes difficult for them to do to do work with them. But autistic people are very I would say, like if you have given a specific time to them, like in a job setting, that for instance, that they have to submit the work in a specific time limit, they would do that. But it is not the case with neuro typical at times. But these are the things that we all that in Pakistan people need to understand, so that when they will get, because a person who have autism also have autistic strengths. I mean, they have do have like good memorization or learning, or they might be good in maths. There are things like that in which they are good. So people need to actually understand that thing. So here, there are laws in place to protect the rights of people with disabilities, including autism, but implementation and enforcement are often weak. So here, I would say that it is weak due to the same reasons mostly. And there are organizations which are actually which do have actually laws and rights for the autistic people or other disabilities. But as mainly I'm talking about autism, so they do have so they do actually have such laws or rights, so that the people of autism feel safe or feel like they can they are being heard by someone. But these organizations are less in Pakistan, but they are actually in process. As in the initial slides, I told you that in different cities in different years, right, different mental health centers were built, so that everyone can have awareness and can everyone can have access to those facilities which are actually mandatory for those who have mental illness. But due to at times lack of resources, this enforcement is weak, and at times due to lack of money, because as at times there are few organizations, there are few hospitals, because as if there are some which are not charging, but at the same time, if for instance if there are few organizations which need which actually cost which have a high cost, I would say a bit expensive, and everyone is not cannot afford that. So due to which the implementation and enforcement are often weak, because everyone cannot have access to it. And most and moreover, definitely due to again that lack of awareness, organizations are less, but still it's in process, like as I have told that the work on awareness is being done. Okay, now I would like to talk about those modalities which are being used in Pakistan for autism. First it is behavior therapy, then speech therapy, then occupational therapy, and then it's physiotherapy. So firstly, I would like to talk about behavior therapy. So in behavior therapy, ABA is used and play therapy is used. ABA is actually applied behavior analysis, and ABA therapy helps children on autism spectrum by increasing their social abilities, communicating, and learning new skills. Actually, ABA is about positive and negative reinforcement and many other things, like for instance for skill learning, I would say discrete trial training is used, and many other techniques are being used. And along with that, we also use task analysis. For instance, if I ask a child that if I ask a child that he or she has to interact with other children, I wouldn't take that child in a room of children, in a room of 12 to 13 children, uh, because it would be difficult for the child to do interaction. So, what I will do task analysis means I will break the task in sequential steps, which means like firstly I will interact with the child. Then after that, I will take the child to the next person. Like for instance, I will ask the child, like I will take a child to the next like in the next step we will interact with the other child with whom he has to play. So initially it would be difficult. So step by step we will do the social interaction. So step by step child will know how to interact with others, or how to speak with others, or how to initiate a conversation, or how to play. So we have to break these things in autism, because we cannot expect from a child that if we are saying a child to behave well, he or she will do that. No, it doesn't work like that. We have to be very patient with the process, and we have to trust the process that things will get better, but slow and steady. Okay, next is like play therapy. As we know that repo is very important. Okay, when you are working with a child, you should work on a rapport building. If your rapport building is weak, which it means the child won't take therapy from you, because he will cry in all the session and he won't feel comfortable. So for that it's very important that you form the repo. So for that we do provide toys to the kid so that he plays with that, and surround the child with toys. And along with that, what happens? We also play with the child. We also becomes a child, so that the child doesn't feel like he's with an adult who is like there to all the time guide or command her. Because definitely we have to make child learn like instruction following, but not in a way that he just feels like that all the time we are giving commands to him or her. So with the help of that, we what we do we do actually form a repo, and it also helps a child to express their emotions uh, easily. Not easily, but as in a way that a child tries to express himself. Because if, for instance, if a child is playing with a toy and he just starts throwing things, for instance, so we have to look like the facial expressions, the body language, like is he or she is aggressive, or he or she is showing a throwing behavior. So it's like that. And also we have to use creative art techniques. In creative art techniques, actually we can use like painting, we can use such creative activities in which a child can have fun. So here it's a behavioral therapy room, which you can see has a soft flooring, also colorful wall, and also short chairs. So it's because like a child in a behavioral therapy room, or in I think in any room, like if it's a speech room, it's a behavioral therapy room. If it's an occupational therapy room, the flooring should be soft. Because as we know that children who have autism can have meltdown, and they can like start doing head banging, so it can cause harm to the child, or can cause injury to him or her. So it's very important that the flooring should be soft. I remember the room where I used to conduct the therapy sessions were designed with the child's comfort and safety in mind. And as you can see, the flooring of that room was also soft, because as it helps in preventing the injuries if a child as like experiences a meltdown and engages in head banging. And also the chairs are low. It's because so that the child ensured like so that the child and the therapist can have an eye contact, because the therapist will also sit on the same chairs, so that they can have an eye contact and and the therapist can match to their height. And these chairs are comfortable for children, because it is according to their height and according to their comfort. And I think the walls of the therapy room should be colorful, because it keeps the children engaged. Otherwise, white walls would be very unengaging for the child, and he won't like to come into that room. So the walls should be colorful. For instance, you can paste the paintings to do with them, or you can paste their colorings on the wall. Or even for instance, I used to pay I actually used to I pasted actually the flowers and the tree over which the two words were written, so that child can read those words or can see those words daily, so that frequent exposure will help in learning them those words faster. So we can do such things on the wall, or even we can for instance, I saw there was a room in which they used to sorry, they actually pasted the emotions, the emotion flash, like the emotions faces were pasted on the wall, and the child used to come and tell like which emotion he or she is feeling today. So it was a good activity which was used so that we so that therapists get to know like what type of emotion child is having, and obviously the daily exposure towards it, and telling them about emotions was is beneficial, so that they get to know that how they have to respond if they are feeling in a certain way. Okay, so next it's about speech therapy. And in speech therapy, these are the few techniques which are being used, but there are many other techniques as well. But these are the major techniques which are being used especially for autism. So, firstly, it is imitation of animal voices. Like the child have to imitate the voices, which means like they have to copy the voices. Like a speech therapist will make an animal voice and ask the child to imitate, so that it child actually practice different sounds, and it actually encourages the vocalization. Then it's a word formation. Word formation means like for word formation CVC, which means those words which have consonant, vowel, then again consonant. Like for instance, the word dog. It's a consonant, vowel, consonant. So these are actually small words and simple words which a child can actually practice and can recognize. These are small words. And next, actually, there's make kid able to respond to his name, as it is very very important in autism that child responds to his or her name. So before giving any instruction to the child, or before as in saying anything, like before giving any instruction like command to the child, you have to say the name, or in any way like in speech therapy you have to call the name of the child, so that child able to know that you are calling him or her, so that it becomes easy for the child. Like when in a socialization someone calls him, like even at home if someone calls him the father or the mother, he or she should know that it is his or her name, and he has to respond to it. Then there's a recognition of verbs and action imitations. As the child grows, like the child have to start, like the child have to make small sentences, because from one word, two word, the child has to like make like small sentences, so that he or she can convey his message, and can express his feelings or emotions. And then there's a use of different communication boards. Like there are different communication boards, as for instance like transport, or like for animals, or emotions, body parts. There are different communication boards that are being used as an alternative communication method. And even in those boards what happens, I've seen like they are and even it happens also in behavior therapy, that we ask the child take out the piece from the puzzle board, from the communication board, and then put it in. So we say the name before saying the instruction, that for instance we say that child, before we say the child's name, and then say that take it out, so child knows that we are calling his or her name. With this practice, child starts acknowledging his or her name, starts actually recognizing his or her name, but it takes time. So next, encourage a child for sound utterance by tapping on lips. So the next thing it is the therapist actually tap on the lips of the child, so that the child actually make different sounds or words. Then actions imitation while playing, it is also essential, so that it is essential for the child, so that he or she like knows how to like socially interact. Next, as you can see, here is a speech therapy room. It has low length chairs, soft flooring, as it is very necessary, as I have told you before. And these books and toys and these things are being used for speech therapy. And even I would like to state one thing that I saw that for this purpose, recognition of verbs and action imitations, storybooks can be used, like those storybooks which have like short sentences, with pictures, so that child can find it fascinating and enjoys it. So short sentences storybooks can be used for this purpose. Okay, next it is OT. OT is occupational therapy, in which firstly fine motor training and gross motor training is done. Okay, fine motor training and gross motor training is done for muscles, like as in for in fine motor, child learns to actually hold things in hand or fingers, and in gross motor training, child actually learns to run, climb, jump, and sorry. Next, it also actually in fine motor skill, child also learns to write, and also learns how to open the button or close the button, or how to zip up the zip or zip down the zip. All these things are also done in the OT, and in OT actually daily living, daily life skills. OT is concerned with the daily life skills, I would say. Then there is joint compression, and joint compression is done so child becomes aware of their position and movement, like of the walk, of the sitting. And then there is energy training strategy. As we know that with autism spectrum disorder, ADHD might comorbid, so in that hyperactive state, with child, energy training strategy is used so that it actually helps in reducing the hyperactivity and increases the focus or improves the focus of the child. So next there is deep pressures. Deep pressures actually are given to the child so that child feels calm, like it actually provides calming sensory input and actually helps the child in self-regulation. In this, like therapy balls or like weighted blankets are being used so that a child can feel calm. And then in this, what we do is like it actually enhances the body awareness, like as in balance and coordination. Actually, if you talk about this, as we know that there are few children who cannot walk, like there are few children who I would say like fell down while walking, or they can't sit in an appropriate way, and they've just fell down. So actually with the help of this, a child is able to maintain a balance in their body, so they can walk in a balanced way, or they can sit in a balanced way, or they can like coordinate their movement. Then there is swaddle wrap. It is done if a child is having any sensory overload. As we know that those children who have autism might have they usually have, actually with children who have autism, they usually actually have sensory problems, so it is used for that. And then there is emotional regulatory strategies which are being used for self-regulation, sensory integration therapy, again like for sensory issues. Like for instance, as currently I have seen, there was a child who was having issue with the voice of rhymes. Even she wasn't comfortable, like while playing rhymes she used to put hands on her ears because she was feeling uncomfortable with that. She used to cry. So these are the sensory issues. So with the help of the sensory integration therapy, these things are being resolved, are being treated actually. And it actually helps the child's brain to organize and actually respond effectively. And sorry, and this is actually occupational therapy room. Over here, as you can see, there is a ladder, um, there's a monkey bar, there is a climbing area, then there is trampoline, and most importantly, soft flooring. Because if a child is climbing up and he or she might fall down, so it won't cause any harm to them or cause any injury to them. So it's very important to have a soft flooring. So it's a physiotherapy which provides massage, muscle manipulation. Here, I would like to state one thing that I was taking a therapy, a group therapy of five children who were having autism, and only one of them used to take physiotherapy, not all of them. So, which means like a physiotherapy is not important or essential or mandatory for autistic children. Okay, it is not. A child who might have cerebral palsy have to take physiotherapy, or a child who have weak joints have to take physiotherapy, because the child whose session I was taking with those other four kids was having a problem in he was actually having weak joints. So that's why he was taking a physiotherapy. And even in those cases, those children who have actually flat feet used to take physiotherapy. So physiotherapy is not mandatory for autistic children. If disorder which actually comorbids with autism, which actually requires physiotherapy, only then physiotherapy is given. Next, I would like to talk about the mainstream schools. Like, does these schools actually enroll or integrate autistic children or not? So private schools do actually integrate autistic children, but before enrolling them, they do actually make sure that if the child is having any like if the child is having autism, then he or she should be taking therapy from the past, means like from the past few years, and then they actually enroll it. Like the paperwork is being done from which center they have taken the therapy. They show the paperwork, like as in they ask the therapy center to like make a letter, something like that, so that they can show it to the school, so that they can prove them that they were taking that the child was taking a therapy before as well. And if it is necessary in the meantime, like if the child is going to private school, but in the meantime he has to take, like along with the school, have to take a therapy, because now the behaviors are uh, uh, are being obviously, like before going to school the child is getting therapy, but still if the child needs therapy while going to school, even then a therapy is being given by the therapy centers after the school time. And even in schools, shadow teachers are present for autistic children, and each shadow teacher only actually deals with one autistic children only. But if we look in public schools actually, in public schools, they do not integrate actually children with autism, because they do not have that much resources or facilities which can actually provide support or help to the autistic children. And the teachers, even the teachers who work in public schools, do not have knowledge about autism, or they are not being trained in a way which can help them in actually dealing with autistic children. So it is difficult for them as well. So in public schools, they do not take autistic children, but in private schools autistic children are being taken in mainstream. And yeah, next, its prevalence. Okay, let's talk about the prevalence of autism in Pakistan. As we have I have stated it in the initial slides that it was only 0.17% autism diagnosis, or this was the disorder that was common. But the thing is, as I told you, the few factors which were causing less diagnosis. So here they stated that, sorry, with an estimated that there are 400,000 children affected by ASD in Pakistan, and it is actually figured out. Actually, this figure is reported by the Pakistan Autism Society. This society actually reports that in Pakistan there are actually 400,000 children. But in Pakistan, the prevalence of autism is not well documented, and comprehensive national statistics are limited. It is limited because sorry, it is limited because in this country people are actually keeping the children at home so that people do not stigmatize them or do not label them as something like as they are as like they are sinful people due to which the child is having autism, or due to them